AI is changing everything for organizations. At the core of much of what is going on with AI is open source. As we have talked about so many times before, organizations are looking for ways to leverage open source innovation and do it securely at scale without complexity. I'm Rob Strechay, and let's dive into and see how Red Hat Summit 2026 will shed light on these important topics. To help me dive in, I want to welcome Ashesh Badani, who's the Senior Vice President, Chief Product Officer for Red Hat. Welcome on board again. I'm excited about this because you're going to help us dig into what people should expect at Red Hat Summit 2026 when we're all together in Atlanta. So welcome on board.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Excited to be back on theCUBE right before Summit, like every year.
Yeah, the 3 years in a row, and this is fantastic. I mean, I love this. I think, again, there's just so much going on. And I mean, everybody's, continuing their discussions that we've been having with Red Hatters around this past 6 months is really AI is just such a pervasive topic. When it comes to making AI a product reality, what should folks be paying attention to at Summit this year?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So we're excited. We're excited to welcome, obviously, you, Rob, and the entire CUBE team, and then, of course, all our customers, our partners from around the world to Red Hat Summit. We'll obviously have a lot of people tuning in virtually as well. So that's fantastic. Making AI a reality, now that's something a lot of our customers have been grappling with, right? And I'll sort of maybe break this out into two buckets. One I'll call the finance bucket, and then the other I'll call maybe the skills bucket, right? On the finance bucket, there's a lot of conversation around, just tokenomics broadly. And I know you at theCUBE, talk about this. We've got many interesting analysts and observers talking about this as well. How can we do better with regard to just understanding token spend? How do we allocate token spend? How do we account for it, right? Is that become a budget like cloud spend and like, T&E spend, and every team, manages that, optimizes that, right? So that's an interesting area of discussion. Obviously, we've got some thoughts on that, right? We're investing and have been quite heavily on the inference area to make just, AI more optimized for use. And then the other part I'll call skills, right? But there could probably be lots of different ways to address that, right? You could call that technology as well, which is a lot of enterprises have POCs in play, and then trying to understand, look, how do we best match the POC, the use case that we have, be able to take them into production with the constraints in place, right? Some constraints were economic. Other constraints could be regulatory. It could be data related, but it could be related also to just where different companies are around how quickly they are even able to adopt all the AI that's coming their way.
Yeah, no, I think that you hit on it. I kind of talk to it being the RO of AI, or the ROAI. Return on AI is going to be an inference, and return on AI are going to be the two big topics, I'm sure. But one of the other ones that I love, because again, this is where open source plays so well, is that AI is very much a hybrid and multi-cloud workload, which means different hardware models, locations, from hyperscalers to on-prem to out at the edge. What should organizations be paying attention to at Summit about this and how it's really transforming?
Yeah, for us, addressing the challenges of AI really is an extension of the work that we've been doing from a hybrid cloud perspective, right? We fundamentally believe that the world is open, right? That's what Red Hat is based on. That's what the company was founded on. It continues to go down that path. Applying those principles of open source, whether it's to Linux, whether that's to containers, Kubernetes, and to an open hybrid cloud, or applying it to AI, for us, we're sort of broadly holding that consistent. We're focused on making sure we give you one platform to run those, I'll call them traditional applications, legacy applications, NVMs, those applications that you've got that are container or cloud native, and then those that are AI-based, right? So one platform to run, everything from traditional databases that you've got in place all the way through the agentic workflow that you want to put together. And the way we describe this, we call this metal to agents. And then we've been doing work on every part of the stack, right? So whether it's supporting multiple different accelerators, those that come from, let's say, NVIDIA and AMD or Intel, or those from the custom silicon that the hyperscalers are making, going up the stack, talking about capabilities either in Linux or in Kubernetes, right? How do we make sure that we're giving you more isolated sandbox for these agents to run securely? How do we ensure that we're giving you dynamic resource allocation across these GPUs? How do we ensure that these large language models are effectively run across multiple nodes, mostly because they can't fit in one node, right? How do you do that in a more efficient fashion? And we keep working our way up the stack, right, to ensure that we're helping you, for example, on a guardrails perspective, evals, making sure that we're giving you red teaming, all the work that needs to be done to ensure that you've got flexibility to run those agents, you can build and create the harnesses that are most effective for you, and then do it on the same foundation that you built your entire infrastructure.
Yeah, I love that, because I think, again, agent ops is becoming such a pervasive thing. And like you said, from bare metal up to the agentic layer has to be, really formulated well. And I think there's one other kind of vector that has definitely come into focus this year, and I expect it to be a lot more, is really around sovereignty. Not just at the country or region level, but at the AI and the data layer. What are you seeing with really the rise of sovereign AI, and how does Red Hat play into this, and what should people expect at Summit?
Yeah, there's the idea, Rob, which you rightly pointed out, around sovereignty, right? And we've got sort of the traditional idea of digital sovereignty, right? And you can argue that that's been in place for a little while. We'll highlight some customers we've been working with on that front. And now we'll also showcase the work we're doing from an AI sovereignty perspective. That's really sort of bridging together those two worlds. We kind of break this up into different ways. We'll kind of talk about that, right? The difference between model sovereignty and data sovereignty and outcome sovereignty, and how you have to have a solution that goes and spans across all of those. We'll talk about that as well. And then the capabilities in the products to help make that successful. What would be examples of that? Well, it'd be really important to make sure that when we give you any kind of product, that you're able to deploy that in a way that meets all your regulatory constraints, right? So you're passing your compliance checks, right, that the guardrails to ensure that you stay in compliance. So that we've done a bunch of work on that front that we'll talk about to give you effectively just safe landing zones to run it. Then the next question is, well, how do I make sure I can get new services added to that? So we'll talk about the work that we're doing to help it make it very easy for you to add services, whether the service is coming from a Kubernetes-based environment or one that will come now increasingly from the work that you do on an AI front, and be able to add, let's say, new models as a service to those environments. And then over time, also be able to make sure that you can extend that out as well. So this whole idea of giving you flexibility and choice to be able to design a sovereign architecture that makes sense for you, that we'll give you a platform for, but then we'll also work with different providers, right? Whether it's a cloud provider, it's an MSP that is recommended by a certain government, or even increasingly neoclouds, right? That are helping setting up these AI factories widely for different organizations. So I think there's a pretty rich set of discussions that we can have around this, and we want to highlight that, as well as some customer stories.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. I think, again, when you look at it, like the model as a service, and how do you get to, are you a token consumer versus a token producer? All of that stuff should come into focus when people show up in Atlanta. So I'm really excited about that. One of the other topics that, one of the other big topics for organizations, and where they're kind of trying to figure out, is they spend a lot of time and effort on AI, but at the same time, they also have to keep the lights on and running for applications that are actually, generating revenue for them. Lots of these applications are virtualized and might actually need to be part of that AI application ecosystem as a system of record, et cetera. What should organizations tune in to listen for when it comes to virtualized estate, and really how they approach application modernization?
Yeah, great point and question. Thanks for bringing that up, Rob, because we're seeing this now as well. Right? You can argue that there's still a conversation to be had with regard to the costs around virtualization, given all the changes that have happened in the market. And we stand by, and we've got lots of customers. We'll make sure we highlight them as well during the event, who've made the journey to go from traditional virtualization to the platform that we're providing, right? That unifies VMs and containers. But that conversation is not just a virtualization migration conversation, right? Increasingly, that's a modernization conversation, right? Because you want to make sure that that platform that you've got is getting those VMs in, making sure that you're supporting those cloud-native workloads, but increasingly is also making it a platform for AI-based workloads. And we firmly believe that the same platform will enable you to do that. Increasingly, you can start thinking of agents as the next generation of cloud-native applications, right? So all the work that you did to modernize your applications to ensure that they were containerized and ready to run in a hybrid cloud world, right? Going forward, increasingly, you'll start thinking of them as agentic applications. And so for us, being able to have this continuum across applications with traditional security boundaries as virtual machines, those that you've got as containers, and increasingly the ones that you'll build out, right? The sort of multi-agent frameworks that you'll put in place, they should all run in a consistent fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, this is one of those things that let's not reinvent the wheel every time there's yet another workload. I mean, AI definitely has some very interesting things that it does to an infrastructure and has to be taken into account. But it's not like you got to reinvent the wheel every time. And to your point, I think a lot of organizations are looking at the processes around those legacy or traditional or their, like applications that they've built in these VMs and seeing how do we approach modernizing them as I bring them into this agentic world as well, which is going to be a key.
Right.
So final thoughts heading into Summit here, looking ahead, what do you see as the next phase of innovation?
Well, there's been a lot of talk, Rob, about making sure that this work that we do, to the point that you're making, this platform that we've got in place that is so, let's just say, securely and adeptly running the hundreds and thousands of mission-critical applications around the world is doing the same for the next generation of AI or agentic applications. And so the work around, for example, workload isolation, making sure that we do network isolation to ensure that we are meeting the security needs that we have in place, right? Because, rogue agents can go off and create challenges. Ensuring that we're providing some frameworks, some guardrails, providing tools for customers to do all the things that you did, traditionally. So, for example, verification, or I think, Rob, you brought up this idea of agent ops. But how can we make sure that we have that auditability, we have those controls in place to be successful around that? So I think we'll continue to see a lot of interest in that area. We'll actually do some demonstrations of the work we're doing on that front because there's so much interest from our customers. We want to make sure that we're providing our point of view there as well. So I think that'll be a rich area of discussion. I think sovereignty is going to be one as well. I think we're in the early stages of that, right? There are a lot of interesting propositions, lots of interesting ideas on how to do them. Those that come from us with our partners as well, and we'll have a conversation on that front as well. And then, look, we continue to effectively keep investing in our core areas, right? So you'll see some announcements from us with regard to how in the core operating system, there's so much innovation that's going on that every layer of the stack can carry forward. So, for example, we made a recent announcement for Enterprise Linux, and you say, hey, look, what more can you do from a Linux perspective, right? Like, that's the foundation element. We went off and changed the life cycle to more closely match the rapid life cycle that NVIDIA has got with regard to the releases that it does, right? So you've got now effectively a RHEL that is moving much faster. And we're also doing all the work to make sure that it stays to be stable, and we make sure that we're supporting all the work that customers need, right, who are running applications in RHEL for, tens of years. And so we're doing work on every layer of the stack to make that possible. We'll make sure that we talk about how that's relevant as much in the AI world as it was in terms of running traditional legacy applications as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that one of the things I think that people can get out of Red Hat Summit and being there virtually is the fact that you'll get a lot of ideas about, especially from a platform engineering up the stack to data science and what have you, to be able to understand how to really optimize this. So, Thanks, again, Ashesh, for coming on board. I love doing these with you. These are always great, and can't wait to see you and the rest of the Red Hatters in Atlanta just in a short period of time here.
Likewise, Rob. Thanks again, and see you in just over a week.
Yeah, just over a week. It's kind of crazy with that. And I want to thank you all for watching this Red Hat Summit preview on theCUBE. Stay tuned for more live from Red Hat Summit, and come by and say hello if you're there in person. If you're watching virtually, enjoy the show.